Hey, so welcome to the next tutorial in Dmod creation. I'm Rob, and right now I am going to teach you stuff, I suppose, as usual. So today I'm going to be explaining each little element of a Set Sprite Info line, and I'm going to be explaining all those weird numbers. Like when you look at it, you think it's a big confusing pile of crap, but after you watch this tutorial, you will no longer think that. So, you want to open the folder of the Dmod we created earlier. If you're just watching this tutorial and you haven't watched the previous ones, then open any Dmod or your own Dmod if you've got one. And then open the Dink.ini file. Scroll, if this will click, since my mouse is just frozen up. Okay, that's better. Scroll right down to the bottom. And in the previous tutorial, we modified a sprite's hardbox and depth dot in Dink.ini, and that created these two lines automatically. So I'm going to be using this bottom line right here to explain what each of these numbers do, and then I'm going to explain how you can keep this file clean, since you've only got a certain amount of Set Sprite Info lines to use, and then you won't be able to use any more. So you've got to watch your use of these things. Alright, so the first number here is the sequence, second number is the frame. That's pretty straightforward. So it's sequence, so this is saying Set Sprite Info, sequence 159, frame 1. So if you go into Dink.ini, open our Dmod, this is actually the sprite that we modified in the previous tutorial. If you right click and press properties, it's sequence 159, frame 1. So there you go. Sequence 159, frame 1. Now the next two numbers are the x coordinate and y coordinate of the depth dot. So the x coordinate of the depth dot is 140. The y coordinate of the depth dot, mix myself up here, is 117. So we got Set Sprite Info, sequence 159, frame 1. X coordinate of the depth dot is 140. Y coordinate of the depth dot is 117. So the depth dot, as I showed in the previous tutorial, is that yellow dot right there. So for instance, if we were to say, we'll get rid of this and close Dink.ini, I'm not going to save it because I didn't really do much. Let's modify the depth dot manually. We'll change it a lot just so you can see that it changes. We'll put this 140, which is the x coordinate of the depth dot, we'll put it right back to say 40, and we'll put the y coordinate of the depth dot back to 17. So delete that. So that's now x 40, y 17. Now if you save that and open Dink.ini again, open the Dmod that we created, and grab the sprites. Okay, now look at that. The depth dot has changed because we changed it manually. The depth dot is now all the way up here. Now what you'll notice is the hard box has actually moved up with it. That's because the hard box is actually in relation to the depth dot, so it's why it moves with it. Okay, now the last four numbers of the Set Sprite Info line is what sets the hard box of the sprite. So the first number sets the left boundary in relation to the x coordinate and the depth dot. So right there is the left boundary. The x is negative 130, as it's got there. That's what it's setting the left boundary to, so it's going from there. That's negative 130. Alright, and the next number sets the top hard box boundary in relation to the y coordinate. So from here to here is negative 60. That's the top boundary. The third number sets the right boundary in relation to the x coordinate. So that's 43 from the depth dot to here is the right boundary. And lastly, the last number right here, that sets the bottom boundary in relation to the y coordinate and the depth dot. So that's 53 down to there. So just to give you an example of that, to show you that it is in relation to the depth dot and everything, we'll close this and we won't save it. And we're going to modify this. We're going to put the top boundary to 0 right there. And you'll see what happens there. And we're going to save that. Go into Dink edit. Open the Dmod. Detail it. Grab the sprite. Now if you press Q, you'll see that the top boundary is 0. So it's exactly in line with the depth dot. Because like I said, it's in relation to the depth dot kind of thing. It goes from the depth dot. So that's why once you set this to 0, it's on the depth dot. So that is kind of the that's all the numbers of the Set Sprite Info line. So we'll go over them one more time quickly. Sequence, frame, depth.x coordinate, depth.y coordinate, and then hard box boundaries. Left, top, right, bottom. But really, you don't need to modify these in here, but it's just good to know what they mean. So it's still easier, like I said, to go into Dink and get a plus, modify it in there. But just so you know what these are. So then if you ever need to do some precise tweaking, you know what to do now. So that is the Set Sprite Info numbers. Okay, so that's probably as best as I can explain this. So if you're still having trouble with this, send me a message. I'll try and make it clearer. Just let me know the certain part that you're having trouble with. But really, that's just understanding the Set Sprite Info line. So now that we've got that down and you know what each number does, I'm going to tell you how to keep this file clean. So basically, if you've got a duplicate line right here, this Set Sprite Info line is setting sequence 159 frame 1, and so is this line. So these are duplicate lines. Now the Dink.ini is always going to use the bottommost line. So if you've got one above this that's the same, it's sequence 159 frame 1, this is going to be ignored by the game. But what you're doing here, if you keep this here, is you're wasting a Set Sprite Info line for nothing. So you want to get rid of that. That is duplicate lines. You do not want them in your Dink.ini. So after you modify a sprite in Dink edit, so if we close this now and save it, actually we'll just delete this line altogether, because really when we were modifying the sprite we were really screwing it up. So I'm going to delete that Set Sprite Info line that was created. So now we don't have any extra Set Sprite Info lines there. We're going to go into Dink edit plus, and I'm going to grab another sprite. We'll just grab, say, this bush. It's sequence 179 frame 1. Press Q. We'll set the depth dot and the hard box completely different. And now if you go into the Dink.ini over here, you'll notice there's a line there. Okay, so that's one line. I was actually going to create two, so we'll edit this again. Put the hard box down here and the depth dot over here. And go into Dink.ini. Now you'll notice that there's two lines there. This bottom one is the one that will be used. This top one is a duplicate. Get rid of that shit. You do not want to waste Set Sprite Info lines. So that is how to keep your Dink.ini clean. You want to do that, otherwise you'll run out of lines. And hopefully that was clear enough for you. Try to make it as clear as possible. Pretty sure it was clear. So yeah, that was the Set Sprite Info lines, and in the following tutorials I'll be explaining other things in the Dink.ini, such as these set frame lines and the extra like these things after the lines. So yeah, we'll be doing that in the following tutorials, so see you then.